Good morning, good morning, good morning. Look who we got. Who the two ladies that are serious about this money making kind of thing. Cindy, how's your back, darling? We haven't talked in a little while.
It's okay.
Hmm.
Thanks.
So
Baby
this is
steps.
it's not a cure, it's just a treatment to manage the pain kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Hmm. Is there is no cure?
No, I'm trying to avoid like what the surgeons want to do is fuse five of my vertebrae,
Oh,
and I'm trying to avoid that.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. But
Is it too
yeah,
late in
I
a process
appreciate you
to do that?
asking. I mean, in November I was barely walking, so I've definitely improved.
Yeah, I remember you did one of the calls on your couch. I'm like, this girl's got dedication.
There you go.
Oh my goodness. How about any additional thought to our personal conversation?
I have been so deep into I have thought about it, but I've been so deep into my treatment and taking care of myself that
Mhm.
like at this moment, I feel like that needs to be the priority and I need to kind of get some other things lined up.
I always say so. There's no doubt about that. So, a healthy mind, limitless.
Right.
If you're sick, you're only thinking of one thing.
Right.
I just want to heal. I just want to get better. It almost consumes us. So I can appreciate exactly where you're coming from. There's no doubt about that. I don't know how you're still
Yeah.
balancing family bills, clients, listings, fusion.
Yeah, and I feel like that is my biggest struggle. After we talked, I was like, I feel like I have all the right things in place, and I have a good day and I feel great and like,
Yeah.
gosh, look what I accomplished. And then I have 2 days where I'm down and I'm kind of barely holding myself together. So
Yeah. So good luck.
thank you. I
Good
appreciate
luck.
that. I appreciate you
Yeah, my
being there.
pleasure.
Yeah.
All right, ladies. So let's do this today. If you have the ability to come on video, seems like a small group. Let's rock and roll. Let's see what we can apply from what we learned on Friday, most immediately with Felicia's call, our call together. Let's see if there's anyone that attended. I think Frankie or Chris, I'm not sure if you were on that call. Is there anything from the call on Friday you learned and applied that you can talk to us about? I'm not the guy that does wins. I'm not a fan of wins in this environment. To me, again, let me give you my perspective. A win is an award ceremony. A win is a trophy. A win is congratulations for getting that listing, that buyer, that client, that opportunity. That's a win. When you come to a coaching environment, I'm not necessarily a fan of giving the trophy. I'd like to learn more about the whole process. That's a victory. So I prefer to say, let's talk about victories, not wins, because the victory tells me everything about the story. How did you get the client? What did you say? What did you do? How did you get to a point where you actually got them to sign a contract with you? Talk to me about the backstory, the part that nobody ever talks about. Just hearing the fact that you got a client under contract doesn't help me. Doesn't help me. In some instances, it might make me feel less than because you're getting clients I'm not. Crap. Teach me how you got the client. This is a coaching environment, not an award ceremony. I'm not knocking anybody that does wins. I don't do them in this environment. This is for the purpose of growth. So let's specifically talk about this one thing that I know will make you money when you apply it because it has already been proven factual with other agents taking this into the field. Before I start, does anybody want to discuss a victory? And Frankie and Kristen and Barbara, if you have the ability to come off mute and make yourself seen, that would be magnificent. If you can't, I actually don't understand, but if you're driving, I get it. Okay. Now, with that thought, is there anybody that has a victory that they would be sharing with us? And again, let me reiterate, a victory is let me tell you how I got this client under contract. Let me tell you how I got this financial advisor who gave me a seller. Let me talk to you about what I did with this estate planner to get to a point where the person that went to hospice, they gave me the listing. Does anybody want to share the depth of a victory, not a win, a victory? If you don't, I have plenty of them that I will share. Okay, so let's do this. Is there anybody on this call that has a buyer or a seller? Anybody on this call that's working with a buyer and or a seller?
I'm working with
Since
the
you're the
seller.
only one, you're the only one on video, honey. It's just you and I. Okay, you're working with a seller. Does the seller have a mortgage on the property they're looking to sell?
They do not.
They do not. Okay. Is the
Well, and
seller
they are building a home out of state. Just to give you a little bit of background, they're building a home out of state, so they're waiting till that home is built until we go live on the market.
okay? So how did you get this seller? Why did they select you? Teach us what happened, son.
Um, I wish I could say I worked really hard on this, but he used to be my son's football coach when my son was 8, 9, 10 years old.
Okay.
We've stayed in touch over the years, basically happy birthday on Facebook. Oh, your new landscaping looks great, that type of thing. Not a lot, maybe 3 to 4 interactions a year. And I got a phone call from him. I don't know if you remember me. I used to be Desmond's coach. We're looking at selling. Do you want to meet?
Okay.
So
So
right. And so actually, I've gotten a handful of sales from people who had connections through my kids years ago. So I'm blessed that my kids were decent human beings, that they left a good impression. And obviously, I left a good impression too.
you clearly did that. Yeah.
Right.
I never
Right.
I don't look at the dog as a good or a bad dog. I look at the dog owner. I look at the children. That's a representation of how they were raised. Same concept,
Right.
right? Okay.
Right.
So part of what we can take from that, or at least I can take from that, is the interaction post kid involved with coaching football, baseball, post, meaning you touch base, nice landscaping. Any of us can do that. You're right. That's not, I'm not taking away from you, but I'm not saying that's such a skill that you have to go get your master's for. We have to learn how to say nice landscaping. No, you just interacted with somebody through the course. The impression was already made on the field. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. So anybody can take from that that maybe I want to up my game with my interaction with other people on Facebook. Let me take that from Cindy, right? So the other
Mhm.
part I can't. I don't have kids, or I do have kids, or maybe I should start having kids so I can interact with other parents. I'm just saying, what can I take from Cindy that I could apply today? I could be more engaged on social media. Wonderful. You get to the point now where the guy meets with you. Do you believe when you met with this client, you already had it in the bag, or were you still representing as such, like, let me not take anything for granted? What are your thoughts?
I felt pretty positive, but I definitely did not have it in the bag. I know both of these people are very analytical, and I figured that they probably would be talking with a lot of people just because that's kind of their style.
So then part of your presentation, in a very brief summary, what do
Mhm.
you do when you meet with a seller? Now, some call it a listing appointment, but what does that look
Yep.
like for you? Is there anything that we can learn from you that you probably said this sealed it,
Um, you
aside
know,
from you?
oh, because I'm amazing, right? I do have a presentation that I give, and I'm prepared with so much information, and I listen to their questions and their issues. And a lot of times I'll skip over pages in my presentation based on kind of where they're at. Kind of like, oh, clearly you understand this, so I'm going to just brush over it. Um, I think what impressed them most was when I walked through their house and was making recommendations. Well, first, I asked their permission to just be absolutely blunt. I
Hmm.
said, and I walked through their house and they have a beautiful house, but there's a lot of clutter and there's a lot of weird colors. And so we walked through the house, and they were asking me questions like, do I need to change that? I'm like, I'm not worried about that, but would you consider changing these things? I created a whole list of things, and then I did videos, photos, and then I did a recap for them, knowing this is a risk. Maybe I'm helping another realtor out by providing this list of things they should do. But I feel like that's what impressed them more than anything
See, I
because
love that.
they, like, for example, they have a saddle in their living room. It's beautiful. Their great grandpa like made it. It had beautiful impressions on it, but what, like, this doesn't belong here. It's cluttering. It's and it was funny because the two of them looked at each other, and she's like, I told you that had to go. And I think I think that in the end, I think the overall presentation, but I think that's what impressed them the most.
So again, I go back to the reason I don't like a win. I like talking about a victory is because I'm learning from you. I get to learn how you solidified that. I get to hear how you took someone that thought their orange walls were okay. No, no, we might need off white or beige or whatever you did with the
Yeah.
color palette or the saddle in the room. Let me ask you this question. If you're the seller, and I noticed behind you, that looks like a purple wall to me.
Mhm. Yep.
Purple wall. Okay.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and I'm not saying good, bad, right, or wrong, or indifferent.
Yeah.
My thought is this. You're looking to sell your house. And I would say to you, seller, if you walked into this room and saw black walls with a big Buddha statue in it, what would your thoughts be as the seller?
That we probably need to neutralize that.
And as the buyer, would you be pissed off, offended, weird? Oh my gosh, why does he have a Buddha in here? Would it then make you
Well,
feel a little bit something
oh,
inside?
right. Oh, yeah. I think a buyer definitely is going to have an opinion about that.
Yeah.
And we want to just make the house as neutral. So whether you're a Buddhist or a Muslim or a Christian, you're going to feel at home in this house.
Okay. So then my thought sent you and Kristen and Frankie who are on today. So the example is this, and this is what I share all the time. The good, bad, or different, it's my perspective. Dictation versus participation. You may have heard me
Hmm.
say it a million times, but here's the real world application. You told them your professional experience, and I'm not knocking it. You're
Yeah.
excellent at what you do, right? You told them, I got you to tell me. So if you were my buyer and we walked
Hmm.
through this house and that wall, instead of it being purple, because you like purple, purple's a beautiful color. I like purple. But what if it was black with a big Buddha statue in the corner? As the buyer, what would you say to me? And then you obviously engaged. So would it
Yeah.
make sense then that this seller probably should have had maybe what, like a white wall and probably remove the Buddha statue? Would that make sense? Yeah, that would make sense. So I'm engaging you to tell me as
Okay.
opposed to me telling you.
Hmm.
Gang, I want you to understand something. When we are engaged in the decision, we're less inclined to walk away. So the lengthy definition, my definition is this. When you get someone to participate in the process, they're less inclined to walk away from a process they participated in. If they're part of the outcome, they don't want to walk away from it. Participation versus dictation. If you dictate now, and this is the balance, and this is just my perspective, just
Hmm.
meaning I'm going to minimize my perspective. It doesn't mean that I'm right. Remember, hope. I say this all the time hope, hearing other people's experiences. Hope. The thought process, if what I'm saying makes sense, you do this with your children. You do it with your husband. You do it with your wife. Think about this. Everything to me is a sale. Everything. So if I get you to engage in the process of making that decision, it's not my decision, it's yours. You're less
I
inclined. You with me?
So really, like as I came across, for example, the things that didn't work or that should probably be changed, I'd be like, "Oh, this is a beautiful saddle. Please tell me a story." Like there's got to be a story behind that. And then
Love
they
that.
would explain the story. And then, like, "Oh gosh, you've got a bunch of racing posters down the hallway. Talk to me about that. Why did you choose racing posters?" And so I would kind of get the story around it. And then I'd say things like, "Oh, I can see these mean a lot to you." And then kind of go from there. I don't know it's going to be nearly as meaningful to somebody who may not be a race fan. Or so a lot of that was just getting the story so they understood that I understood that these things were important to them.
Once again, Sin,
Okay.
exceptional and still confused about your production. We'll talk about that later, right? But
Okay.
that is absolutely exceptional. The only tweak that I would say is at the
Yeah.
end, when you said this might not be as appealing to a seller, if you
Yeah.
were the buyer, take
Right.
them from
Right.
seller, yeah, put the buyer hat on. If you're the
Right.
buyer coming through this house and you saw, now I know who they are, so I'm going to make something entirely opposing to who they are.
Right.
And someone had, they like, I think you said racing photos. Maybe they had
Yeah.
something else that was people playing chess, or just something that is opposite of what the seller is. I would have them be the buyer, and they'll bring up an opposing image. What would your
Mhm.
thoughts be if you walked through the house and it had 6 posters of whatever? And again, the buyer, I don't,
Yeah.
or the seller.
Yeah.
I would ask them, and they would say, that would be really weird to us. Aha. And you look at their
Yep.
facial
I like
expression
that.
and their body posture and all of that. So getting them to tell me is what I'm more looking for than me telling them.
Mhm.
You did it in a magnificent manner, but you still told them.
Yep. Yep. You're right.
Kristen, what are your thoughts? You have experience in this as well. Your teeth look wonderful, by the way. She was doing whitening strips, so I'm.
Mm. Sorry, I hadn't one of my agents just messaged me, and so I missed the last part of the conversation because my agents have to come first. Um,
I understand my
but
position.
yeah,
Kristen, the thought
but
process, again, going back to the whole idea of dictation versus participation. These are minor touches that could yield a major result. It is just
right,
psychology. Everything's a presentation or a sale. But go ahead.
yeah. So I mean, going back to the whole, I don't know. I guess my approach on things like that is that when people are asking me for my opinion on like their house, like we were just talking about, black wall, Buddha in the corner. Um, I try to temper it with, this is not my opinion, but this is the opinion of the market.
Mhm.
Um, I found that has gone over a little easier than just coming out and saying, we really need to get rid of this black wall. Um, and it's all in just how you phrase it, just making it. I like to put the onus on the market, not Kristen's personal opinion.
Okay. So, and I'm not saying right or wrong, these are just my thoughts. I love the fact that you're removing yourself from the decision and putting it on the market. I do love that. But the difference that I'm bringing to your attention, if it makes sense, apply it. If it doesn't, it's okay. If I get you to tell me you're engaged in the decision, even if it still is the market, I'm going to pick something opposing. Whatever it is that you're doing, I'm going to pick the opposite and ask for your thoughts based on that. What would you think if you walked through a home and it had black and white walls, red walls, purple, a yellow wall, a horse, whatever that is? It would be opposing to them. And they're going to give me their visceral reaction. I'm releasing a chemical in the brain. They are getting a different sensation when they're engaging with me. So I love the fact that you're putting it on the market. I don't necessarily disagree. I think it's fantastic. I still want them to tell me. I'm going to do everything I can to get them to give me their thoughts, feedback, opinion. That's my pull. And all I say to you guys is try it and see what happens with that. Or don't try it and stay with what you've been doing. If you're having a very successful result on what you're doing, I would say, why would we ever deviate from something that's working? All I'm doing is saying, hey, I would never tell you don't do that. I'm just going to say, does it make sense to add this? Because if I say don't do that, you're going to do that even more. We are children at heart, regardless if you tell me, right? So I'm going to say just add, see what that is like, get that vibe or that feeling back from the client. And again, part of the reason that I like doing a victory versus a win is because we're really digging into what got Cindy to the point where she's going to get this home. I need to learn all of that so I can learn from Cindy or Paul or Kristen or Lori, whoever else is on the call, right? So you get to the point, Cindy, where you're about to list the home. The home does not have a mortgage. It's free and clear. They're getting ready to build another home.
Mhm.
Okay. What is the potential sale price of the home?
Um, 480. They
Okay.
they really want 500, and maybe they could get 500, but in my mind it's 480.
Okay. So let's do
Mhm.
this, gang. For the sake of this example, I'm going to give this to you. Let's do 480 and 10%. I'll just do 20%. 480. Hold on. So it would be a loan amount of 384. This is a buyer putting 20% down, having a mortgage amount of 384. Let's write this down so we're all doing this together. I'm going to make up an interest rate. I really, even though I'm a mortgage guy, I don't pay much attention to the market. It is what it is. So I don't put any attention on it. If you ask me what the rates are today, I couldn't tell you. Paul, I thought you were in the mortgage business. Right, but the rates have nothing to do with my performance. So I don't even put any emphasis on it. My point is this: that principal and interest payment, I'm going to write this together with you, is $25.55 on 384 at 7% conventional for the sake of this example. I'm now going to do this. I'm going to make it 4% and a payment of $18.34. $18.34 minus $25.55 equals $721 a month difference. Let me tell you where I'm going with this.
I know where you're going.
I'm sorry, Sid?
I know where you're going.
Okay, teach us that.
Well, I'm guessing you're going to say if we were to promote it, that the seller is going to buy down the rate. So that way we're more selling the monthly payment than we are the overall price of the house.
Yes, one of the
Yeah.
links in this chain I'm about to share. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Love it. Love it. Now, watch the framing. Cindy is the seller. She can beat me up. Sin, go after me, right to the throat, right? Cindy is the seller. Sin, right now, if somebody were to buy your house at 480, they would have a monthly payment of 25.55. That's the highest payment we've had in 30 years because the interest rates are the highest they've been. What if they had a payment of 1834? Do you think that your house would sell quicker if the payment was 1834 or 2555?
1834 for sure.
Okay. So then let's do this. While we're at it, you want 500. Correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
95. So let's do this. 18. So you're at 19. Let's go back to that original payment. Somebody tries to buy your house today at 480, putting 20% down. They got a payment of 25.55. What if we sold the house at 500 and the buyer actually had still a payment of 1929? You get what you want, they get what they want. You get to move on. You've sold this house for more than what the market is bearing. Does that appeal to you?
Absolutely.
Okay. Sid, I said, beat me up. Go for the throat, baby.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
All
How
right,
much
so-
is it going to cost me? How do we make that happen?
Well, it's going to cost you $20,000 if you don't do it. Meaning,
Right.
what if you held a private note for 4% and made money for the next 12, 24, 36 months on a house you sold? You sold the house and made more money than you thought you were going to make, and it's still paying you in passive income for the next 3 years at 4%. That's more than the banks are paying.
Okay. Tell me more about that, because I need every bit of cash that I get out of this house I sell in order to buy my new house.
Okay. So I thought you said they already had a house built or being built.
Well, it's being built.
Okay.
So, right.
Okay.
So they need to sell this house in order to make their final payment on that
Understood.
house.
So let's
Yeah.
talk about this. You're holding a private note, which means you're the lender. You make the
Right.
requirements, you draw the rules. Here are they, right? You need 20% for your new home. Do you know what the new home price is?
Their new home price is $800,000.
Okay, so you need 160,000 for a down payment for that. I'm making numbers up.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
they're putting 20% down, they need 160,000.
hmm
Okay. So what you could require of this house, now again, you know the finances, I don't, but maybe they already have 30,000, maybe they already have 50, maybe they already have 100. I don't know those numbers.
hmm
For the sake of this example, you need 160. So now the rules are, with your selling house, you want $160,000 down payment, and the balance will be held at 4% on a private note with me, the seller. I take the 20% they gave me, the 20% I use to buy that new house is now covered. And the buyer has a 4% interest rate on the balance of the note.
I hear you.
cringed,
Yeah.
I saw your 11s. Talk to me. What do we got?
Well, because they're nearing retirement and she has it all figured out in her mind that they are going to take the proceeds from this house plus a chunk of money from their investments, and they're not going to have a house payment. So I think
Okay.
that, I mean, that's exactly where her brain has been the whole time.
Okay.
So it's going to take a lot of reframing.
I'm not even saying to reframe. What I'm
Okay,
sharing with you now is, for the sake of this example, it may not work on this seller,
right,
but the concept is what I'm sharing with you.
right,
The
right.
concept. Someone that
Mhm.
might not be thinking that way, but I'm the guy that says this, and I've said this many times before. Cindy's the seller. Have you consulted with your financial advisor on the budget of the new home or the net proceeds from the sale? Have you consulted with that guy or girl?
Yes, we've been
Yes.
talking all along.
Okay. I would love to share with them this idea. And the reason I say I'd love to share this idea is because they didn't share it with you. They
Right.
might not know it's an option. How
Hmm.
can we make a decision without knowing all of the choices?
Right.
Sin, if anything, it gets you on the phone with your future board of director, which is their financial advisor, who's going to be blown away with what you're teaching,
Right.
because realtors are not doing it. They're
Hmm.
not doing this. I don't understand. In a high rate market, everybody should be talking to their buyers and sellers about private notes. In a high
Okay, so
rate market, I'm
talk to
sorry.
me a little bit more about how that works. So is this an arrangement for say 3 to 5 years and then eventually they need to buy out and get a mortgage? Or do you hold that
So
note forever?
you're the lender. You can make up your
Uh-huh.
own rules. Let's
Okay.
assume you're the actual seller. I'm
Mhm.
Cindy Johnson, not nearly as pretty, but I have an interesting perspective to share with you, right? So, Cindy, as the seller, the thought is this: do you believe during this president's administration, interest rates and inflation are going to go up, or are they going to come down over the next 3 years? What are your thoughts?
They're definitely not going to come down.
They're not coming down. You
Right.
can tie the note to whatever term you want.
Okay.
I talked to 10 people this week. 7 of them think the interest rates are going down. 3 of
Mhm.
them do not. I'm just
Yeah.
looking at the numbers, right? So if
Mhm.
70% of the people that I talk to think they're going down, I would tie my note to the administration's term, 3 years.
Mhm.
And I would give you, the buyer, an option to refinance out and pay me off at any point in time, no prepayment penalty. So if you get out sooner, you want to get out sooner. I'm going to do a 4-year note. So it covers you for an extra year. We'll see who's going to be in next. But for the sake of example, for 4 years, and I could even do a step up, Sim. First 12 months is
Yeah.
4%. Second 12 months is 4.5. Third
Mhm.
12 months is 5. Fourth 12 months is 5.5. Step it up to the point where they're going to eventually want to get out of that note. You're the lender. You make the rules.
Okay.
It is creative financing that in a high rate market should be brought up every single time to your sellers for a couple of reasons. The most important to me is to create separation from any other agent. Other agents
Mhm.
are not talking about this. They don't understand it. They don't even know. They haven't been taught. I'm not being disrespectful. I'm being candid. I talk to an awful lot of people during the course of the week. They're not bringing this up at all.
Mhm.
In your seller's situation, it might not be of benefit to them to do this. However, it gets you on the phone with their financial advisor in a collaborative call where we're having a conversation. Financial advisor, do you have any clients that this would benefit? Any sellers, any people getting a divorce that this would benefit them? I'd love to meet them. Sin, it's a segue into building your bod, diversifying it, because I believe this because it happens to me. I have a 100% success rate. Cindy, you either have a phenomenal financial advisor you love and you're going to introduce me to him, or you don't, and I'll introduce you to mine. I
Mhm.
win either way, Cindy. You now have a chance to meet their beloved financial advisor they've had for 30 years who's managing their money. Shouldn't the person that's selling their biggest asset communicate with the person that's managing their money? I believe yes.
Mhm.
You now get to meet that financial advisor and present something to him no other agent is talking about. That creates
Love that.
separation. You've got his attention. Now you might get his intention.
Mhm. Love that. Yeah.
Very, very different perspective, gang. It's not being talked about, it's not being introduced. And these real estate agents, and I've got a couple that I'm very friendly with that have over 10 listings, no offers. And I said to them, we need to introduce to your sellers in private financing, educate them, and we need to introduce DSCRs to the buyers because they don't know if these properties are going to perform. So it's just about bringing something different. You can't keep putting your bucket in an empty well and complaining you're not drawing any water. I'm not talking about Cindy or Lori or Sherry. I'm making a blanket statement that I'm not going to allow the economy to control my economy. I'm learning ways to creatively create my own economy. That financial advisor might say, wow, we do need all the proceeds, but if this property can earn you 4%, that's more than the money market I got you in at 3%. I don't know what he's going to say,
Right.
but my point is you get in front of him because of that.
Yeah. Love that. Yeah.
Lori, Sherry, go ahead.
Oh.
Go ahead, Sid.
Oh, and I've been just touching base with them about once a month. I mean, it's going to be September before they actually put the house on the market. So I just touch base once a month, like, oh, here's a home that sold in your neighborhood, or here's where the rates are, or kind of here. And my most recent conversation was there's a lot more seller paids than there were when we first started talking, to just start to get, and even that they're like, ooh, how are we gonna counteract that? And I can have, some of these kind of conversations. Yeah.
Yeah, it could open up opportunities. And again, always think bigger, not for the paycheck. Bigger, like, okay, how do I continue to grow and expand my board of directors? And I'm always looking to meet more people. And if you have somebody you love, you're going to introduce me to them. If you don't, I have somebody I'm going to introduce to you. I win 100% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts, Lori or Sherry?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a win-win for everyone.
As do I. Yeah.
Win-win-win.
I'm sorry, Lori?
I said a win-win-win. You get to
Win-
meet their financial advisor, or they can introduce them to you.
Well, that honestly, it works really well. And remember, I don't teach anything out of theory. I teach things that I've done or am doing. And in a high rate market, there's some things I look at. Another call for another day. And I'll certainly share this with you, Laura, on our private call. But Kelly Anderson went on an open house tour. They went like on 30 open houses over the weekend. And I gave her such a unique strategy that she's never heard of. I said, don't do what every other realtor is doing. I'm going to teach you something nobody's even thinking about. And it's the FHA mortgages, it's the VA mortgages, and the houses that are owned free and clear. Collect all that data. That's who we're going to target because FHA mortgages are assumable and so are VA mortgages. So now I can present the assumption as opposed to the sale price. And the one guy has an interest rate of 2.75 on his FHA mortgage. So now, instead of being a regular realtor trying to sell that house, I'm promoting the assumption. And I can sell that house for more money because the buyer's picking up his 2.75 interest rate. Come on. Nobody's talking like this. Nobody.
Are all VA and FHA loans assumable?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Doesn't a VA loan have to be assumed by another veteran though, right?
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but my point is, at least you're looking at the open house differently. I'm looking at the mortgage and the payment. They're looking at the decor, bedrooms. I'm like, no, you have all that information. Look at something nobody else is looking at. And now we have something better to present. Different perspective, ladies. Thank you for attending. God bless you guys. Have a wonderful day. Let's make some money. I'll see you later, Laura.
Well,